Evening and welcome to episode 366 of the Gersnet Podcast. I'm your host tonight, I'm John McCallum. Gersnet, of course, is the independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans, where the content is totally free. Now, it's not just a podcast we have at Gersnet, there is a forum, there are articles, there's social media, it's a wonderful history archive. And now, if you're listening for the first time, I hope you enjoy yourself. You picked a bad night to join us, because it's going to be grim tonight. But anyway, you picked a bad night to join us, whether you're on for the first time or you're on for your 100th time. But if you do enjoy it, we'd encourage you to subscribe and let people know on social media. Now, before we get into talking about last night's game and all things Rangers, I just need to mention our sponsors, who are Forrest Precision Engineering. They are a big subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, and they've been a big commercial sponsor of Rangers for many years, and we are delighted that they are backing our podcast again this season. You can find out more about them at forrestprecisioneng.com, and you can also visit the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge, which is a stunning new hospitality area in the main stand at Ibrox. And if you want some information on how you can book that, then you contact the club directly on hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Now, it's a special Monday night show. I don't think we've ever done a Monday night show before, but bring a Monday night show. I'm joined by Alan Rogers tonight, and we will look back on last night's victory against Hearts at Ibrox. We'll ask, should our club captain be starting matches? Is this a welcome international break? And what can we expect when we return? And as it's just the two of us, it'll be a slightly shorter show. It'll be longer than a minute silence at a Celtic game, but shorter than a Conor Barron appearance against Hearts, no doubt. So, Alan, let's just jump right in. I'm not even going to ask you how you are, because I know how you are. We can see it's all written all over your face. You're frustrated, you're depressed. You never thought you'd get to a stage where you were actually welcoming an international break. I understand that, Alan. Anyway, looking at yesterday's game and the starting 11 when it came out, return for Balogun, Diomande playing that kind of number 10 role, and of course Tav coming in for a start after being, I think you have to say, he was dropped for Thursday night. What was your take when you saw the starting 11 on the bench?
Yeah, good evening, John. Good evening, everyone. I was pretty happy with the starting 11. You know, Balogun's a good, solid hand, certainly domestically, and for a home match against Hearts, Balogun's good enough. There's no question about that. There is an argument to say he's our best centre-half, which, no harm to Liam Balogun, but it's pretty damning on the state of the club.
But
I was happy
to harm to Robin Proper.
Well, yeah, I was happy to see Balogun back in, because as we know, Proper doesn't seem to fancy the physical battle. And, you know, Shankland, I mean, I think he's more than a physical striker, in fairness to him. I think his movement's got better and he does drop deep more often. But Shankland up against Proper, you know, I think Shankland would have fancied that more than he would have up against Balogun. So I can see the logic in bringing Balogun back in. Again, good solid player. Tav coming in, excuse me. Again, we're just in this weird twilight zone with Tav at the moment. You know, he's 33 now. And I've said before on this podcast, it's a black mark against the club that at 33 he is still first choice, because he shouldn't be. You know, he should be fighting for his place. He should be playing 20 games a season or something like that, rotated with somebody like Sterling, as we slowly phase him out. And the fact that we're still playing him in the vast majority of games speaks volumes in terms of the transfer business that this club's done over the past few seasons. Having said that, I do think people saying Tav's a disaster or he can't do it, he's past it. I don't think that's true either. Again, a bit like Balogun, I think for a home game against Hearts, I think Tav's fine, if I'm honest. I think he'll be fine. Not at his peak, not what he once was in terms of his attacking prowess or his ability to get up and down the wing, but that's natural at age 33. But we're in this really weird scenario whereby now we're looking at games, we start on our captain at right back, and he's now looking like the first guy that's going to be subbed off. And
so
that's such a strange scenario for a team to be in.
Here's a question for you, Alan. Is he the best right back at the club?
Yes. On the basis that we've never seen Sterling at right back. Not really. We saw him in the European game last midweek where he did well enough for 55 minutes. Casemiro, again, has been okay at right back, but he's not really put together a solid run. Whereas at the moment, I think you'll know what Tav gives you, and I keep harping on. I'm sure all my fans are tuning into this Gersnet podcast because they know I'm on it, and they'll be sick of hearing me say that the system is exposing certain players, and Tav is one of them. You know, you're leaving him marooned at right back when he doesn't have the legs anymore, you're still asking him to go up and attack and get back in time, which he's physically not capable of doing. And he's brutally exposed by that. Now, Sterling, I like what he's given, but we've also got to balance it up and say we've barely seen him at right back.
Yeah.
The
played almost every other position.
The vast majority of games he's played elsewhere. He started centre mid at Parkhead this season and was not good. And I think he's a guy that started 5 or 6 Old Firm games and has never won one. So as much as Sterling has attributes and you think he can contribute, he's still got a lot to prove, a hell of a lot to prove. We're giving him a new contract and he's in a leadership group now. So if Sterling's the future, then play him. If we're saying he's now going to be a right back for the next 2, 3, 4 seasons, whatever it may be, get him in the team and play him. And Tav can be his backup and he can come on at 60 minutes or whatever, or play the odd game here and there. If that's the plan, then fine. But let's see that's the plan. There's no point starting Sterling in the European game at right back. He does well. He comes off, which allegedly was pre-planned. I'm not sure I buy that. And then the next league game the Sunday after, Tav's back in. And then Sterling does come on, but not at right back, at centre mid. And then the guy that played centre half now is coming on at right back. It just seems like a complete mishmash. But completely getting off piste, I still think Tav has something to offer domestically, certainly in this team. He should play his part. Should he be first choice? Well, based on his history, probably he still should. But if the manager wants the plan moving forward to be Sterling, then let's start playing Sterling. He's first choice. That is lose.
Sorry, I'm not sure he does. I mean, Sterling's there. He's been available largely whilst Clement has been at the club. Tavernier's form probably started to wane around February last season. And he hasn't found it again. But like you, I kind of think he's probably still the best right back at the club. So, we can all moan and groan about it, but I think he is probably the guy that we do need to start. But I kind of tend to agree Paul isn't going to finish matches these days.
Yeah, and that's okay. There's no disgrace in that. 33 saying you're
if you're playing 2 games a week.
Exactly. That's absolutely fine. And he needs to accept his part in that. But I also think the captain's armband is a bit of a lightning rod. A lot of the Rangers fans kind of fetishise the captain's armband and think it's some kind of magic potion that change the cap. Anytime there's a stray pass, change the captain, or a drop, change the captain. It's just like an instant reaction for some Rangers fans, and I don't understand why it is. I remember going back to the 2001 season where we stripped Amoruso of the captaincy, gave it to Barry Ferguson, but finished the season even further behind Celtic than we were when we changed it. And then we did it again. When Rickson won the league at Helicopter for Sunday, we took the captaincy off and gave it to Barry Ferguson. Finished third next season. So there's absolutely no rational basis for any Rangers fan to suggest that changing the captaincy has ever had a positive effect on the team. But for some reason, it's just a constant solution. But from Tavernier's point of view, it's that kind of, is he vocal enough on the pitch? People want them to be shouting and screaming. But again, I don't know where people get that from. If you watched any of the games in lockdown, Tavernier and Goldson were really vocal on the pitch, really vocal. So I just don't understand where that criticism levels at it. And people will deny it, but the season McCoist was manager, Steve Davis got a hell of a brutal time from the fans because we were not playing well, and Steve Davis got the brunt of it for not being a vocal captain, the usual nonsense. Now they say, he's a legend, anything to have Steve Davis back. So the fans will just turn as and when they feel like it. But,
I mean, when you've got a support as big as Rangers, you get every type of view, every type of argument. And the point you make about changing captain is interesting because I think part of the demand is they just need change. Something has to change. So change the captain. Will that work? And I don't think it's necessarily something that's been terribly well thought through. I don't see an obvious replacement as captain. I don't particularly like goalkeepers as captain. And I know people would look at Butland and say...
Sorry to jump in, John. What has Butland done to deserve the captaincy? Absolutely nothing. Butland's not having a good season. He's really not.
No, he has his moments, yeah.
He's had his moments, but that can go either way, positive and negative in terms of his moments. It's good for the Old Firm game where he's lost the goal and you've thought, was that really the best he could have done? So I'm not going to go at Butland tonight by any stretch, but I just think, when it comes to the captaincy, people need to try and remove that from the debate a little bit. Tav, he's got his faults, of course he does, but in his 9 years here, there's only one teammate has ever had a bad word to say about Tav, and that was Joey Barton. And that tells you everything you need to know. His teammates love him, and that does count. I know people wouldn't like me saying it, that counts for a lot more than what the fans think.
Absolutely does. Plus, every manager he's played for has retained him.
There was a post that I read a post or a tweet the other day saying Steven Gerrard's biggest mistake at Rangers was making James Tavernier captain. Now, that is not somebody I would ever be interested in talking about football with that has that opinion.
What does Steven Gerrard know about captains?
Exactly. I mean, how can you work with that? But he's always going to get it. He's always going to get it, But this just has to be his last season at Rangers. It's his 10th season. You'll get some sort of testimonial, no doubt. Hopefully we end it with some sort of silverware so he can go out in at least a moderate high because he deserves it. He's been a massive contributor, one of the most important players of the modern era for a 200 grand signing from Wigan. He's had some unbelievable highs that we never thought possible, some really horrendous lows that, he's stuck by us. And he's a guy that he's played through injuries. He's always been available just about.
He doesn't hide. He doesn't hide. And that's, again, something he's never given credit for.
No.
And I did wonder whether we tried to move him on in the summer and either he didn't want to leave or the right buyer didn't come in or I did wonder if that part of the reason why he's still at Rangers and is still starting is because he didn't leave and we then weren't able to go and get a replacement for him. And it's difficult to know. I have no inside knowledge on that, but I did wonder if that was perhaps where we are. And, ironically, he assisted with the goal. He found himself, in the attack. I'm not sure if it was going in anyway, but Cyril Dessers made sure. And what I've written here is it was a proper striker's goal from in the 6-yard box, where, frankly, Dessers should be at all times. Never have him outside of the 6-yard box. And it baffles me that he just doesn't spend more time there. And I'm not trying to be flippant here, but the number of times, particularly recently, where Rangers have been on an attack, a cross comes in and he's away at the back post for some reason. What are you doing there?
Yeah.
Get in that 6-yard box. You're 6'1", 15 stone of muscle. The goalkeepers are scared of you. Get in that 6-yard box and you've got a chance. And he doesn't do it enough for me, and it's so frustrating. And I don't understand it. I mean, I don't know if you have any insight into this, but I don't understand why he just doesn't try and hit that 6-yard box every single time.
To be honest, John, you know what I'm going to say, mate? It's the system. The system doesn't let him do that. For that goal against Hearts, first, that's where we want Tav. That's the Tav of old. It's an attacking move, and your right back is at the back post attacking it and makes a big hit. That's what he can still do. Again, the legs aren't there, but the brain's still there and the instinct's still there, and that's a positive contribution. But for Dessers, Morelos had the same kind of issue. He was playing up front on his own and he dropped deep and back to goal and all the rest of it, and he always wanted to say, could you not just play more between the posts, and just be that kind of instinctive striker? But this 4-2-3-1 type 4-3-2-1 hybrid that we're playing at the moment, I don't think it lets him do that. Certainly it was yesterday, sorry. After we went 1-0 up, Hearts looked to need to move to a kind of 3-4-3. So straight away, you've got three centre halves, or three players in the centre half position. You've got Dessers on his own. I'm just not sure what he can do with that. In that scenario, and we've seen it before this season, an opposition manager changing their system and Rangers failing to react to it and dropping out of the game. And I thought that happened yesterday. And Dessers suffers because of that, because he barely touched the ball yesterday.
No, other than the goal, he didn't hardly anything.
He just hardly did anything. But we've seen what he can do in a positive sense. He can grab you goals. He will grab you goals. There's no question about that. He's got 3 and 3 across 3 different competitions this week alone. By any stretch, that's a good contribution from a Rangers striker, especially his goal in Greece, which was an absolute peach. Picking up where he did, picking up where he's deep, the wee chopper inside, selling the dummy, and then just boofed it in the bottom corner. I mean, it's one of those goals that it makes it look easy.
Yeah.
If
he played for another club,
if he
played for another club, you saw that goal, you'd think, I would mind buying him.
Yeah.
But he costs a lot of money.
Yeah, that's the thing. You could put together a 3 to 4 minute highlight reel of Dessers at Rangers, and he would look shit hot. And you think this guy looks great, but you could also put together 3-4 minutes where he looks like a diddy.
Yeah, he looks like he'd won a competition or something again.
Before we'd signed him, it was can I mention a rival podcast? I don't know, are they rivals? The Rangers Review did a.
We never talk about them on here.
Sorry.
You'll never be invited on again now.
Yeah, an unnamed podcast, had an interview with Ronald De Boer.
I didn't know there were other Rangers podcasts.
I just stumbled on it. And Ronald De Boer said, look, see, the thing with Dessers is he'll go on a stretch where he looks abysmal and you think, who is this guy? Is he a footballer? And then he'll go on a run where he gets 10 and 12 and he looks great. And that's exactly what we've seen from Dessers.
Yeah.
And it's such a bizarre phenomenon.
Yeah, he's a streaky player.
I've seen so few players like that over years. But he's one of these guys that at the end of the day, we need him. We're relying on him, because if it wasn't for Dessers over the past week, where would we be? Well, even worse than we are at the minute. That's just
yeah. I mean, it's. We'll talk about it in a wee minute, but it was a nice move that led to the goal, and everything about it suggested this is us. That's us. 6-7 minutes the ball went in. It was a nice move. We started the game well. Everything about it suggested, right, we'll push on now. 2-0 by half time. 3-0 final score. We'll play out the last 20 minutes, and folk can go home early and get to their beds. And of course, it didn't go that way. And most supporters left frustrated and disappointed. Why are we not matching? Why is Rangers not matching supporters' expectations, and why are the supporters' expectations not matching the team we've got? What's going wrong just now?
Well, first things first, I don't like this system that Cologne plays. I don't think you can play this 4-3-2-1 where your front three are slow, and all of our front three are slow. Barami's got a reasonable kind of burst of acceleration about him, but he's not fast, he's not pacey. Czerny's the same. Dessers is a relatively slow player.
Yeah, Dessers isn't fast.
And I just don't see how you can do that in that system with those players. And I think it's just a matter of square pegs and round holes at the moment. So I don't think that helps at all. But as I alluded to earlier on, and I've said before in this podcast, opposition managers changing their approach. Often when Rangers got a goal down, I remember it really obviously happened at Tannadice. We played really well early. They literally made a sub, brought on an extra midfielder, and we just fell out the game completely. We just didn't react. And I thought that happened on Sunday as well. When they went a goal down, Hearts went a kind of 3-4-3 out of possession and a sort of 5-4-1 when we had it. 3-4-3 in possession and a 5-4-1 when we had it. And we just didn't respond to it, and it just crowded out. There was a moment at the early in the second half where Balogun had the ball and he looked up, and Rangers had a front five. Barron was now in the front five for some odd reason, all completely in line with the Hearts back five. And there was just nothing for him to hit. And it was at that point the crowd started to get really antsy at Balogun for not doing anything with it. But there was no option for him. There was absolutely nothing. And it just seems such an easy game. Just, drop midfielders back, they move, they create options, they pass, then they move on again, whereas a lot of Rangers players pass and stand still.
Yeah, that's very, very true. As someone my dad pointed out recently, actually.
And it's such a simple thing to get right. But there's nothing within this team that looks like they've ever met each other before. And I obviously, being facetious, but
yeah,
it's true that the number of times when Cologne came in, he talked about shit lateral passes into the middle of the field. And we were all delighted because Rangers, that was a problem that Rangers had. We're losing goals from it. How many shit lateral passes into the middle did we do yesterday? Every player did it. Yefti did it, Barami did it, Barron, Diomande. They all were guilty of that. Just a completely loose ball towards the middle that Hearts pick up. And that, to me, is indicative of just a poor system and players that don't understand where each other are supposed to be. And
how long does it take to learn a system?
Well, Clement said he couldn't possibly go to a back three because they'd only have a day or two to train it. But then you're not telling me none of these players have played in a back three before. You're not telling me just by communicating and talking to each other on the pitch they can work through it. It's just this unflexible system that the players don't seem to enjoy playing. The fans certainly don't enjoy watching it. We're not getting optimum results with it, and yet the manager's just belligerently staying with it. So there's an argument to say with different players to suit the system, it might be effective, and we've seen it effective in Europe to an extent.
Yeah.
But that would matter not a jot if we can't sort out the domestic form. Gio Van Bronckhorst is a great example of that. He couldn't get the domestic system right. But, we're coming up against Borussia Dortmund, and it was Goldson that gave it in an interview. He said, they came in and said, right, we're going man for man at the back against Dortmund. And according to Goldson, the dressing room were sort of like, sorry, what? Did I hear that right? But look how it panned out. That's a manager adapting to his opponent trusting his players to play a system they've not played before because he thinks it's the most effective way of delivering a result. Whereas now you've got Clement saying, oh no, we can't possibly expect him to play a back three because they don't have time to learn it. And you just want to go, really? Is that really the approach you're taking to this? But I think realistically, it's just a case of, I believe in my 4-2-3-1, and that's what I'm sticking with. And there comes a point, the whole doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. This is how it's going to go until there's a serious change, either in the squad, which isn't going to happen because we've got no money, or in the system.
So, for all Hearts had a couple of chances yesterday, and got a decent chances, certainly. The one when the boy hit the post was a good chance. Czerny, Barjami, Danilo, and the Dutch boy, as I'm continuing to call him, could all have scored yesterday. They all had good chances to score. And speaking in cliches, goals change games. And had we got a second goal at any point yesterday, it would have killed the game. Hearts, and I didn't think Hearts had a great deal about them yesterday. You can see why they're languishing this season. It's quite a turnaround for them. And that for me is the challenge that the squad has got, the team has got. We just don't have goals in us just now. You mentioned earlier about Dessers and where would we be without him? Well, I don't know, 6th, I think, is the answer to that, because this is a team, it's the Rangers team that don't score enough goals. There's not enough goals throughout the team. Our two sitting midfielders, I don't think they've scored a goal between them all season. Diomande doesn't look like a guy who's going to contribute 10, 12 goals a season. And Czerny has chipped in with goals, Barjami has chipped in goals, but nothing like enough. Our centre halves, I remember these centre halves would get 6, 7 goals each a season, from corners and set pieces. I mean, you get as many corners and set pieces as Rangers get. We should be scoring, our centre halves should be scoring goals. And because a right back isn't scoring goals this season, his team stopped scoring goals. And that, for me, is and I don't know if that's a system thing, I don't know if that's a players thing. I don't know what is it. I wouldn't even like to hazard a guess as to a change of system would make this work any better. Clement knows a hell of a lot more about coaching teams than I do. But I can't decide whether this is one of these things that will just start to improve, that will all start to score goals, or whether this is just, until the players change, we're not getting more goals because they're just not good enough just now.
I mean, the big problem that we have is it's the middle of November. So it's a new team, they're a young team. A, they're not a new team anymore. And B, they're not a young team either. The average age is about 25, roughly. That's not young in anyone's book. Even someone like Iggerman, I don't think he should be classified as a young player. He's 22, but we still have this, it's a work in progress and we're still going to get there one day. But you just don't get that at Rangers. I remember, excuse me, years ago, it was Mark Warburton's first season. I can't remember what game it was, but it was a game at Ibrox, maybe it's even his first home game. Rangers were playing, there was a really lovely passing move. I'm sure Tab was at the back. I'm sure it was a kind of back heel he got, and then he crossed it, and we didn't score from it. But I just remember it so vividly because the fans just went mental and started cheering and absolutely loving that moment, because it was like, after all those years in the doldrums, it was like, holy shit, it's football.
Football.
Yeah, that was great. And then about 2 weeks later, we beat Raith Rovers 5-0, and Zalalem and Oduwa both had really good games. There was lots of fancy flicks, and they both did a lap of honour at the end, and the fans lapped it up because it was like, we're playing entertaining football.
Well, exactly. You were being entertained.
Yeah,
exactly.
This was brilliant. So, although the results are all the most important thing, style and entertainment does count, and that breeds confidence in the team, breeds confidence in the crowd. The crowd get up for it, and it just becomes a cycle like that. And the opposite's true as well. When you've got yesterday just pure stodge, and the passing's loose, everybody's putting the ball out of play. There's constantly passing it to the opponents. They can't string 2-3 passes together. There's no moves, no patterns, no structure. The players know that's happening. They're not daft. They know they're playing badly. They know it's not working. The fans can see it's not working. The fans get moody. They're getting on their back. And it just breeds this horrendous atmosphere that absolutely lends itself to a late Hearts equaliser. Everybody was sitting on their hands at this moment in time going, Jesus, you can feel a Hearts goal coming. And that's just how it goes. And we need to just sort that style problem out. And I detest mentioning it, but you don't have to look too far across the city to see a team that aren't reinventing the wheel. They've got a couple of athletes at centre half, they've got 3 really mobile, really fit centre mids, and they've got their 2 fastest players in the wing. That seems pretty straightforward to me, but it's effective. Whereas Rangers are just addicted to doing something differently. Niels Copping gave an interview a few weeks ago where he said, we really targeted physicality and pace. And I remember kind of spitting my Cocoa Pops out when I was reading that, going, is he for real? This team, squad, massively lacks physicality and pace. So I don't see what they're looking at when they have a look at the squad and decide what brand of football this squad wants to play. Because
Dessers doesn't have pace. Barjani has some pace. Cherny has pace over short distance. He'll go past you. You'll catch him. If you're running 40 yards, you'll catch him. But if you're running 10, you probably won't.
That's it.
Hefty's big and strong, I suppose. Suter's big and strong. I don't. Balogun is, but I don't think we can count him. The 2 sitting midfielders are, they're not tall. Cortez, I don't know. I mean, Cortez obviously is fast if he's ever fit. It would be interesting to see what we'd be like with him in the team, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Crucially, if Cortez is playing, you've got to assume Barami will go to number 10. Whereas
that's the assumption.
Yeah, but Barami's pace, I mean, again, he's all right pace-wise, but he's not a winger. He's not going to burn you for pace when you're playing on the counter-attack.
He's not going to knock it past you and run round you, no.
So he'll use his good footwork, and technically he's a good player. But if you've got pace either side of him, then suddenly it just gets you up the pitch more, and it gives your opponents something.
Yeah, absolutely. It means that he can't play a high line as well.
It's that kind of Maida v Tav thing, which I do think is a bit overstated, I've got to say. But, everybody's going into that game knowing, right, that's a mismatch. In that area of the pitch, in terms of pace, that's a mismatch. And it affects the game. It affects how both teams play because they know that's there. So, conversely, if we had some pace up front of both their wings, Celtic's fullbacks aren't fast. So if we had pace to match them, it would give them something to think about, give us a clear direction and style of play to try and hit the wings and use the pace.
Yeah.
We did it okay when Sima was there. At some points we used Sima's pace quite well. But obviously he's long gone now, so and we haven't replaced him with the same style of player. And that's where I really struggle with Clement. I can't understand what he's trying to achieve with those players in this system because it's not working. Everybody can see it's not working, apart seemingly from the manager.
Yeah. The support voiced their opinion yesterday when Conor Barron was taken off. Barron's had a decent start to his Rangers career. He's a busy player. He's the kind of player a lot of Rangers fans like. He's industrious. He gets himself about. He wins tackles and as Scottish people like players like that. I quite like him. I'm not entirely sure he's everything some people do, but then that's maybe just he's maybe standing out just now because the team isn't playing terribly well. But he had a good game through the week. I thought he did look pretty decent through the week, and he's had a decent start to life at Rangers. I think that's fair to say. And as I said, the support were they were fairly vocal in their disapproval of that substitution. Is that fair? In the end, Clement, didn't take him off because he was playing badly. He clearly took him off because he felt he needed to change things. We weren't playing well at the time. He clearly felt he needed to do more energy in there, and maybe he knew that Barn must have covered a fair mileage over in Athens in that game. So was it fair? I don't know. I mean, I never like it when fans boo, but we're all entitled to do it. What was your take on that?
I mean, was it fair? Probably not, because he was tired. He's got a lot of miles in the tank. We can't complain about running Tav into the ground, playing him every game, and then complaining when he's taking Barron off, so he's not running him into the ground. You need to kind of pick your side on that one. So if he's taken off because he's tired, that's fine. It reminded me a lot. I think it was definitely last season under Beale. I think it was a game we won 1-0 as well, and I want to say Dessers scored, and I can't remember. I might have been Seaman get taken off when Lammers was having an absolute stinker, and that substitution got booed. And at that point, you just thought, it's done. Beale's done. You know, the fans are telling him he doesn't know what he's doing. I just felt yesterday that was a wee bit like that as well, because we were winning. And I think if we'd been winning more comfortably, or we'd been playing better, or just the more of a style, or maybe if it was Hadji coming on in place of Barron or something like that, fans wouldn't have been as vocal. But because we were struggling, Hearts were well in the game, we're lucky still to be in the lead. And, you know, he was bringing on, you know, 2 right backs. I think the fans were just like, what's this guy doing? And I think it was more to that reaction than just Connor Barron coming off the pitch. I think that was telling the manager, we fundamentally disagree with the way you're managing this team. I think that's just how it manifested itself that particular day. Because taking off Barron in of itself is not unreasonable, but bringing on Sterling when you're chasing, trying to get a goal, trying to get creative, I just can't understand that at all.
But I mean, Barron's not creative. I mean, for me, putting on Sterling for Barron, it's kind of like for like, with a bit extra height and probably a bit more legs. I was puzzled at the reaction. I have to say, I thought it was a bit over the top.
I think the fans are clinging to Barron a wee bit as a kind of ray of light in a dismal season, which is not really fair on Barron, and I think it's perhaps overstating where he is at the moment as a player. But I do like him, and he's contributing well. But you know, the fans will cling to that, and he's the guy that you want to build around now. So when he gets taken out of the equation, the fans are going to react. But as I say, I think in normal times that wouldn't really happen. But just at the moment, I think it was a wee bit of a watershed moment for Clement. It was real, you know, booing at full time for poor results and things like that is one thing, but actively booing what the manager's doing during a game, it's very, very rare that I've seen that. You know, so last season with Beale, and we're seeing it again with Clement, and I just think it's a bad sign in terms of the direction of travel, I feel.
But is it fair? Is it fair to have done that?
No, because you don't know the reason for it. You know, again, if it's purely about sports science and he's covered too many ground and he's at risk of injury, then fine. Again, we had it, you know, recently with overplaying likes of Tom Lawrence, you know, and he got injured and all this kind of stuff. So the manager can't win in that regard. But as I say, from the booing perspective, he was just getting taken off and you're booing him, I think that is unfair. But I do think there's more to it. I do think there was more to it, and it was just a venting of frustration at the manager for his general management of the team as opposed to that specific decision. So, but that's me getting, you know, almost conspiracy theory about it.
Well, that's okay. That's why we're here. So I'm going to jump around a wee bit, and I'm just going to go straight into this and ask you, because you know it is fairly clear that a decent percentage of the support are unhappy, and they're voicing their unhappiness towards Clement and the team. Whether that is actually why they are unhappy is difficult sometimes to pin down. But a decent percentage, I think it's fair to say. I wouldn't like to put a number on that, but a decent percentage of our support are unhappy with our manager. Where are you in that regard?
I'm certainly not happy. I think, you know, it's this time of year where we generally sack the manager, going by the past couple of seasons. And I think the fans are aware of that. And what we cannot have is sitting in third place, 9 points behind Aberdeen. I mean, it just can't happen. So as much as this is a rebuild season, and the fans would accept that if we could see progress, and if we were in second, and if Celtic are ahead, right, fine, they're ahead. Okay, they're better than us at the minute. But for Aberdeen to skeet ahead of us with a new manager in the summer, we spent very little money with a quarter of our wage bill, if even that. That's where the fans are really getting antsy about it, and it's really difficult to see where this team is going. And I just feel that we're in these death throes. That we had it with Beale, we had it with Gio, where we're sort of limping result to result, and you're just waiting for that last result to be the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think if we dropped points yesterday, I think that would probably have been it. If I'm honest, you know, they'll talk about contracts and projects and everything else. Doesn't matter. Once the fans go, you have to sack them. That all becomes irrelevant. And I think Clement is just on that cusp of any more drop points, then it becomes untenable. And I think he knows that. The squad know it. The players certainly know it. Presumably the board will know it if they're paying attention. And that's why I think the atmosphere is so difficult at the moment, because we've seen it in the past 2 seasons. This exact scenario of the squad just slowly starting to fade.
And okay, so let me take that point you just made there. We've seen that now for 3 seasons. When Gerrard left, I know he wasn't sacked, but when Gerrard left, we weren't playing great when he left. Started the season well enough, but then we weren't playing great. Gerrard left. When Bronckhorst came in, everybody was very happy. Well, Bronckhorst had an incredible start to his Rangers career, and then 3 months later, 3 months into the season, he's sacked. And then Bale comes in. Everybody's happy because everybody wanted Bale. And he's a good start, and things go quite well. And then it turns, and we find ourselves in a position where everybody wants rid of Bale. And then Clement comes in, and everybody was happy, but quite a lot of people were happy. We thought, this is interesting. And he had a great start. And we're in this cycle, Alan, and at what point do we break this cycle? Because what do we do? Do we sack Clement and bring in McInnes? Who's going to come? Who can we afford? We're still paying the salaries of 2 of our managers. We've got a third one in the place just now. How does that work? This is the thing that I struggle with when people say, look, change now. I know you didn't say that, but I have heard other people say that change is inevitable, the manager has to go. So how does this work? What makes anybody think that changing the manager just now and bringing in a new one is going to make the slightest difference?
Well, we've got recent examples in history of changing a manager and at least getting a bounce. At least getting that, as you've referenced. Now, longer term, has it worked out? No. Okay, that's the risk you take. But at this juncture, we're really at a bit of a crossroads just now. Because if you stick with Clement, say we stick with him, say the board stick to the word, say, no, he is not getting dismissed, so put it out of your mind, we're keeping him. Where do we go? Either Clement turns it round completely, let's hope he does, absolutely, fingers crossed, let's hope he does, and we can beat Celtic in this cup final, we beat them at Ibrox, we can beat Aberdeen next time, or Aberdeen fall apart and we catch up and finish second. Second would be a good finish as it stands at the moment. Is that likely? I don't think that's likely. What I think is more likely is we'll continue to stumble. We'll probably take a bit of a hiding off Spurs. We're definitely going to take a hiding in the cup final, I hate to say. And then where do you go from there? Because the fans will get vocal, they'll stop turning up. There'll be more, quote unquote protests and banners and all this kind of stuff. And then it just becomes toxic. And at that point, all the board can do is try and buy back a little bit of the fans' faith. And inevitably, on Planet Football, that means changing the manager. That's how it happens.
Yeah, but,
it's the only thing the board can do. Now, is it ideal?
That.
No. Is it how we want to be? No. Does it make a lot of sense? Not really. But it's just
and yet we're sitting here suggesting that's what
I know.
we should do. And that's for me, I look at it as well. And look, I hear exactly what you're saying. And you are, I would say, you're in the what you said there, whether that's your own view or whether that's a view you're just saying that it's the majority view. All I'd say is that I think Clement actually is quite a good manager. He's not an elite manager. He isn't at the highest echelons of management, but he is a good manager. This is a guy who's won the league with 2 different teams in Belgium. He's managed a top team in France. He is a good manager. He understands football management much better than probably Michael Beale and probably Giovanni van Bronckhorst. And arguably more than Steven Gerrard, in terms of his experience and what he brings. So, he is a good manager. The people at the club, whether we rate them or not, chose him and then chose to give him an extended contract just 3-4 months ago. So they clearly feel that something is right there. And my concern with this is just now this. I think you could bring in, Guardiola and have him assisted by Mourinho, and it's not going to make the slightest difference to making Dessers hold up play any better. And the reality is that our 4 strikers just now are Dessers, Igamani, Danilo and Lovelace. That's our choice of 4. And if you go back 3 years, our choice of 4 was Morelos, Defoe, Roof and Itten. And it doesn't matter who you put in charge. That front four is not nearly as good as the front four that were there 3-4 seasons ago. So, this talk of a project, I agree with you. I don't know if Rangers is the club to be coming and doing a project, but I am very concerned that if we part ways, and I think it is becoming increasingly likely, a poor result against Dundee United, we will struggle against both Spurs and Man United. There is a danger of an absolute horsing from both of those two. I'm more confident about the cup final. I do think, I'm older than you. I've seen some fairly ordinary Rangers teams in my time, and we lifted ourselves for big games. There is a pride there. There are still good players in that team. We were unlucky to lose the Scottish Cup final. Now, I accept that Celtic are playing better just now, but we were unlucky to lose the Scottish Cup final. We were hammered at Parkhead. But at the same time, we had chances to score and we didn't take them. And if we'd taken one or two of them, who knows? Who knows? But anyway, we'll worry about that. That's someone else's problem on a pod in the future. But
I think that's, I guess, just to finish off, what I will say is, the games between now and that cup final, probably with the exception of Spurs at home, are imminently winnable. They really are. This Rangers squad playing relatively well should win those games. And that is exactly what Philippe Clement needs. He needs that run to try and build a bit of confidence. We hoped the Olympiacos game was a sign that the squad's coming together, because we were really good in that. We're tenacious, we're snapping into tackles. Some of our attacking patterns were really good. We gave the ball away quite a lot, certainly in the first half. I got caught on the ball quite a lot. But the fans didn't lose their shit about it, because you could see what the team were trying to do, and you could see all the hard running that was going in. We didn't give them time in the ball, we're snapping in. And the fans were really enthusiastic about it. And we didn't even win the game, but everyone was like, this is good.
Yeah.
But we just couldn't carry it on against Hearts, against a much, much worse team than Olympiacos. The performance was just dreadful. And, Clement needs to put a run of results together. If he can get this run of results to take us up to the Spurs game, the Spurs game's a bit of a free hit, right? Nobody's expected to do anything. Unless you get absolutely battered, that the fans will accept a loss. They'll eat that up, because at the end of the day, it's Spurs. But then, only a few days after that, you've got this cup final. If Clement's still in position at that cup final, I can't remember the last cup final where a manager just had to win. He just has to win it. The fact it's against Celtic is unhelpful for him, because they're better than us and we have to accept that in a minute. But as you say, the last time we played them at Hampden, we were extremely unlucky to lose it. We had a goal very controversially disallowed by, as always, referees that wake up when it's us in the VAR spotlight.
Yep. So
there can be a bit of belief there, but is the squad as good as it was at that cup final? I'm not sure it is. But he needs to pull something out of the bag. If we go this 4-2-3-1 again against Celtic's midfield three and their pacey wingers, we'll get done. It's that simple. And he can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. But let's hope we can put together a run, get to that cup final, put on the performance of our lives, and win that cup, bring it home. And if we can do that, the fans will get behind them. The belief will come back. The belief will go into the squad, crucially. And then we've got always the traditional difficult Christmas run, culminating in a home game against that lot in early January. The opportunity is there for them to get the fans back and for the squad to get the fans back. It can be done.
Yeah.
Is it likely? Perhaps not, but it can be done. So as much as we're all pessimistic and maybe realistic about our chances of doing that, it doesn't mean it's a lost cause. That's the important thing. But as you say, we come back after this international break after 2 weeks and draw 0-0 with Dundee United. Everything I've just said is completely tipped.
Well, listen, sir, I agree. So one potential bright spark is Danilo, who I think I probably on here said I wasn't sure he was ever going to come back. I did wonder whether he's just one of these guys whose body's breaking down. But he's come in, had a couple of cameos, and I've quite liked what I've seen. He could have scored yesterday. He set up the chance for the Dutch boy. He had some nice link-up play as well. He is obviously a much more mobile player than Dessers. He offers something different. I'm not convinced he's dynamite in front of goal, but he offers something different in terms of link-up and movement. Could he be the answer to our problems if he can stay fit?
Well, let's hope so. if we spent, 5-6 million on him, we'll probably paid, he must have paid him a pretty wage if we're paying that transfer fee, he came from Feyenoord. So if we can get him fit, a bit like the Sterling situation, right back, look, if he's the guy that you want to lead the line in the future, play him and give him a run of games. He can't do much with these 15, 20-minute cameos here and there. And he's not in the European squad, which at the moment is looking like a bit of a gaff. But we have to commit to him. Either commit to him or tell him he's not part of the plans or he's going to be a bit part player, because we're never going to pay 5-6 million for a bit part player and he should move on. Yeah. And we'll save the wage and try and reinvest. So if you've got a striker like that, tell him, look, we're going to go with you. Let's see what you can do. Or you change the system and try and get Dessers and Danilo in. I think that was Beale's grand plan, was not sort of Dessers and Danilo with Lammers behind them. And we never ever saw it.
No, I never saw it.
So if Dessers isn't the lone front man, can we devise a system you can get both Danilo and Dessers in the same team? Certainly in home games or domestic games. Give opposition defences something to think about. And it gives us more options up front. It means that, the packed defence, you've got a wee bit more chance of getting through. You have to abandon your system a wee bit. But again, is the system working? I don't think it is. You just have to have a wee bit of a rethink. Because guys like Danilo, maybe even Hadji, can have a part to play. But as long as you're going to stick to this 4-2-3-1, I just don't see where he's going with it. And I think if you were to ask Danilo, do you want to play up front on your own, or do you want to play as a kind of second support striker as you've done your entire career at all your other clubs? That's what he would pick. So as a lone front man, Danilo, his movement's good and his pace is reasonable, but I think you're not giving him the best environment to be the best he can be. And that's where I think we need to have a look at it, because we've barely seen him. Has Danilo ever started 3 games in a row for Rangers? I'm not sure he has. No. And he's been here just shy of 18 months. Okay, injuries in there and so forth, but that's mad for a £6 million signing. Yeah. In these days, and he's not started 3 games in a row. I mean, it's typical Rangers luck. But if he's now fit and we're confident he's over his issues, then get him in the team. And I
don't know if we are confident, but he's certainly getting fit. He's going to need. I think he will be playing 20 minutes and 25 minutes. For the next month or so. I don't know if he'll be starting any games quite yet. He's missed so much football, but having him as an option, having him as somebody competing for that, whether it's one centre forward role or not, I think can only be a good thing. And none of us have seen enough of him to know. Actually, as I said, I don't get the impression he's going to score 25 goals a season. He's not that type of striker, but he has got great movement. He does look like he's got a decent touch, and he that might just be. Him and Cortez. I'm clutching at straws here, Alan. Him and Cortez, running riot at Hampden, or against St Johnstone away. One of the two will do me.
When you can say that in fairness to Clement, 6 million on Danilo, 4.5 on Cortez, but 3.5 on Ridvan. He's barely ever had these players available to him. Yeah. These players that were. And to be fair, he didn't. Well,
Cortez he did. We didn't buy them. Right? I mean, these are players inherited, and Ridvan was on the bench, of course, yesterday as well.
That's the point. Can he improve the team? Can you put him in? Get Yefty moved up? There's got to be options there.
Yeah.
But again, I just think you need to revisit your system. In Scotland, you need 3 in the middle. Because putting your 2 up against a constant 3, 4, or 5 it's only going to end one way, as we've seen loads and loads of times.
I think we'll probably call it a night at that. I was going to ask if you were looking forward to the international break, but I think we all know the answer to that now. Whether you like international football or not, it's a break from Rangers.
It's one of those things. We used to hate these, didn't we? Bloody 2 weeks. This is going to be boring. But now we're just, it's a shame. It's a real shame when it gets to that. But once we come back from this international break, there's a real tough run of games. So we need to psychologically prepare ourselves for those, I think. And let's hope that in a few weeks' time we're sitting back on this podcast, looking back at how ridiculously pessimistic we were and moaning about stuff because Clement's turned it all around and we are shooting towards the top of the league, and we've got a cup in the bag and everything else. Let's end on a happy note.
Stranger things have happened, Alan. Alan, thanks for your time tonight, a Monday night. Appreciate you giving it up. I'm sure, like me, you were watching the Coronation Street Omnibus or something, like whatever you normally do on a Monday night. But
don't go there, that's private.
Well, that certainly is. Anyway, thanks for giving it up. I just remind everybody that the podcast is available on Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, and Spotify. There is a podcast planned for a week on Friday, but there'll be nothing in between times. And as things stand just now, it'll be Rob and Stuart who will be building up the excitement to Dundee United at home, I think, isn't it? I think we're playing them at home. So what could be better? Frankie's off to his house in Monte Carlo for the next couple of weeks. That's where he goes when the international breaks come. The rest of us will just be here in rainy old Glasgow. So thanks for joining us tonight, Alan. Thanks for joining us and giving us your views. And good night.